So hopefully everyone can see that PowerPoint now. So I might hand over to Cheryl, who is going to do our acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Rob. So Federation University Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands and waters where our campuses, centres and field stations are located, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and First Nations peoples.
Thanks very much, Cheryl. Look, we're going to spend a bit of time today talking about two different degrees. They have different purposes, but they're also very closely linked. And so hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll get a sense of what is going to be the most appropriate choice for you in terms of your study in relation to these two degrees. Now, obviously, if you're here, you already have an interest in education and an interest in teaching. And so what we're going to do is spend a little bit of time, first of all, talking about the characteristics of these two degrees, some entry requirements, but also how you can go and find out some more information about these if you're interested, because obviously we can't necessarily cover absolutely everything in a presentation like this. So we'll give you as much information that will probably help you make a decision about where to go next. So first of all, entry requirements. Obviously it's pretty important to know what you need in terms of getting entry into these two degrees. So the first one is the one that I coordinate, which is the Bachelor of Education Primary. Now, because this is a degree that qualifies you to teach in schools, it has slightly different entry requirements to the course that Cheryl coordinates. So you can see there, in terms of mathematics, you've got to have those mathematics, those 2 units in general maths or methods, or 3 and 4, and a study score of at least 25 in English, or it has to be 30 if it's English as an additional language. The important one there that's a recent, relatively recent change anyway, is the ATAR score. We have a minimum ATAR score, and that would be after any adjustments are made too. So any additions, so for our C's allowance, for example. There's also a CASPER test, which everyone is required to do, which is a test that's not administered by us, it's administered by a private company. But what it does is it tests your personal attributes and your suitability to become a teacher. So it looks at things like your emotional understanding of situations, because obviously that's a pretty important aspect of teaching. And also, we strongly encourage everyone to complete a personal statement, because your story and your background and your interests are pretty important in terms of your motivation to become a teacher, and that obviously then has an implication in terms of your success once you do commence study. So the TZ5, the BEd Primary, it is a degree that when you complete it, you will be qualified to be registered as a teacher, which is slightly different to TC5, so I might hand pass now over to Cheryl.
Thanks, Rob. The Bachelor of Education Studies is a pathway course which you might enrol in, and it enables you to then transition into a Bachelor of Education Primary. So, for example, if you don't quite meet any of the prerequisites that Rob has just talked about, you might consider doing the Bachelor of Education Studies, which requires a study score of 20 in Units 3 and 4 English, either, and a pass in Units 1 and 2 Maths, including Foundation Maths. And there is, for people who are coming in as direct entry because they completed their VCE some time ago, or perhaps they have some other qualifications, then there is also a literacy and numeracy test that you might need to do to be able to enrol in the course. So when you apply, the admissions centre will sort those things out and they'll let you know. But yeah, that's it. So we're rolling into TC5 is a generalist degree. There are a lot of careers in education that are actually beyond the classroom teacher. So if classroom teaching is something that you choose not to do, you can still qualify to work in the education sector, either as maybe an aide, teacher or integration aide, working in an adult education setting in TAFE, a non-teaching role. So above each of our schools, there are massive education systems, industry systems, where there are people working in education policy, in curriculum design, in programs of welfare and wellbeing for children, all kinds of things like that. And having an education degree can be a real advantage when you apply for those positions. Thanks, Rob.
Did you want to talk about like me?
Oh, sorry, there's another one.
Yeah, one more.
All right. If you complete the Bachelor of Education Studies as a full 3-year degree, you'll not be eligible to teach and be registered with the VIT. You won't be able to participate in the placements that your peers will be doing towards teaching. However, you will need a Working with Children's check. If you are offered a place in the Bachelor of Education Studies, you can, however, study the first year, so the first 8 courses of a degree. And if you meet the prerequisites, then you can transition into your teaching program. And all of the courses you've studied in education, provided you're on the pathway that you started with, either early childhood, primary or secondary, will be credited towards your teaching degree. And so you can still finish within the 4 years if that is your aim. Okay, Bob, I think that might be it.
Yeah, I think that's one of me. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah.
Thanks.
So look, the important message there with the TC5 is that it's been specifically designed as a pathway program. So if you don't meet those entry requirements that we talked about for the BEd primary program, you can enrol in TC5, and once you've got through that first year of study successfully, you can change straight over into TZ5, and then you've only got another 3 years to go. So you get through in exactly the same time. So it's been specifically designed as a way of allowing you a different way of getting to where you need to go, because we all come into teaching through lots of different pathways, and so if you don't meet those entry requirements, this is an option for you to do the TC5. Now, if you do come straight into TZ5, the intention of this degree is to prepare you to teach foundation to Year 6 students, and as part of that, you're going to do a number of different studies. And you're going to do studies in your education theory. So you'll look at, how do children learn? How do you most effectively teach? How do children develop over time? You're going to look at curriculum studies. So you'll look at those areas of the curriculum that you'll be required to teach as a primary school teacher. So in particular, literacy and numeracy, but also science, humanities, health and phys ed, arts. So you'll do courses in each of those, so you'll understand how you go about teaching those particular areas of the curriculum to children of that 5 to 12 year age bracket. It'll take you 4 years to get through from start to finish, which includes professional experience, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute too. But from start to finish, 4 years. And at the end of that, you're eligible to become registered as a teacher in Victoria. Well, actually, you'd be eligible to become registered as a teacher anywhere in Australia. So within that as well, we have discipline electives, which give you a degree of specialisation or deeper understanding in one of these areas. So you choose one of these areas, so either English, mathematics, science, or inclusive education, and you will do 6 units of study in those. Now, those units of study for the first 3, so English, mathematics and science, They're done in other schools here within the university. So if you're doing mathematics, for example, you'll go and work with students in the mathematics faculty. Science, same. Inclusive education we run within the School of Education ourselves. Now, even though it is a specialisation, it does not mean that you are going to become a specialist teacher and just teach English or just teach mathematics or just teach science. You are still coming out of this degree as a generalist primary classroom teacher with a degree of expertise in one of those areas. So the other critical component of any teaching degree is professional experience. So that's when you go out into schools and you practice being a teacher. And so the idea of that is that you need to take those lessons and theoretical understanding that you would have picked up here at the university, and then you have to apply them in an actual context within a school. Now, across the 4 years, you'll do 80 days of professional experience in schools at a range of different schools and also in a range of different year levels, because it's obviously quite different teaching 6-year-olds as opposed to teaching 12-year-old students. And so we want you to come out and to be confident that you can go into any age level in a primary classroom and you can confidently teach them what you need to teach them. So you'll be going into a range of different schools. We have people here at the university and their job is to locate those schools and to locate your placements for you. So you haven't got to go and find a school to do your placement at. We just need to know things like where do you live, how have you got transport, are there any issues in terms of not being able to move around for whatever reason. You know, often it's things like we have a lot of students in the course who have their own children and, you know, they've got to do school drop-offs and all this sort of stuff. So we'll get information for you to know what the parameters are around which we can work, and then we will locate those schools for you. Now, when you're in a school, you'll be located in with a teacher who will be your mentor for that placement, but you'll also have a university mentor assigned to you. So it might be someone like Cheryl or myself, who is someone at the university who you can consult with, and we'll check in with you to see how things are going, and we can do school visits to come out and talk to your teachers as well, and to talk to you about how the placement is going and what you might need to work on and improve. You do need to have a working with children's check. It will be one of the first things we will chase up from you when you're accepted into the course. For you as a volunteer, it's free to get a working with children's check, but we won't be letting you anywhere near a school until we have seen evidence that you have a working with children's check, because that's a legal requirement of anyone going in and working in a school, is you must have these checks that you're a suitable person to be working with children. So it's a really important part of the program. It's also a really exciting part of the program, because it's when you get to go out and work with children and do all those really exciting things. And it's probably, you know, if you're here listening to this presentation, it's probably because you're really excited about the prospect of working with children. I mean, that's why we all become teachers, isn't it? So this is a really special part of your placement. So once you've checked your entry requirements, if you're a Year 12 leaver or a recent Year 12 leaver, so I think that within the last 2 years you'll apply through VTAC. You can also do a direct application if you're a non-Year 12. So perhaps you left school quite a few years ago and have gone off and done other things, or you've gone off and worked, or whatever. You can then do a direct application to the university, and we look at slightly different criteria, particularly for those of you who may have finished school quite a while ago, and we also may ask for extra requirements like a literacy and numeracy test. But if you think that you would like to do either one of these degrees, but it's a long time since you've finished school, then consider a direct application. And my advice to you would be the best thing would be to get in touch with myself or Cheryl or one of the program leaders and say, this is my story, this is what I've been doing, what do I need to do? And we might say, well, okay, well, go ahead and apply. Or we might equally say, well, yeah, maybe you're better off going through one of the pathway programs first to make sure that you're as prepared as you can be, because obviously we want you, when you enter one of these degrees, to be as successful as you can be. And so we'll recommend the most appropriate way that you will be successful in going through one of these programs or pathways. So the admission pathways now, Cheryl, there is another presentation on pathways today, isn't there? Is that correct? On the different pathways?
Yeah, at 12:30, Rob. So if I think you may have some people in your presentation now who were in the previous one, but if anyone would like to find out more about the Bachelor of Education Studies, or even the Undergraduate Certificate in Education Studies, I'll be talking about those at 12:30.
Okay, so they just go back where they found this presentation, they'll go back and find that Pathways presentation for 12:30 and just log in like they've done to arrive here at the moment.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. So there are some of the pathways that, and I think rather than probably go through all those, because it's probably going to take us too long, looking at the time here, we want to leave a bit of time for questions at the end. Why study at Federation University? Well, that's a pretty good question, isn't it? Because there's lots of universities out there. Well, here's some of the reasons, and we're actually ranked #1 in a whole range of pretty important characteristics according to the Good Universities Guide. So you can see there in terms of employment and student support. I reckon one of the really important things to think about when considering which institution you might apply for is the fact that an institution like ours, you actually get to know your lecturers really well. Because we're a smaller institution, you'll get to know all of your lecturers on a first name basis, and if you've got any problems with anything to do with your study or life or whatever, what you do here is you go and knock on someone's door and say, Rob or Cheryl, I've got this issue, can we work out a way through it? And so you become a person rather than a number at a smaller institution like this. And I think certainly from the feedback we get from our students, that sort of personalised approach to education is something that they really value, being at a place like this. But obviously the other thing that's indicated by these rankings is we get really good outcomes for our students too. So there's a whole range of student support here at the university too. So it's not just about study. If you've got other things in your life that are impacting on you, we have we have counselling, we have health services, disability support, we have assistance with careers and employment. So for example, getting part-time work, we have a hub that distributes information on work opportunities. So apart from, I guess, the academic side of getting you through your degree, there's also these other support services which allow you to make sure that your life and your study and your work all kind of work together to make you successful, because it's important to being successful at universities, making sure you manage all those different things, that you're not working too hard so you can't study enough, and vice versa. So it's important that if you think you need help with something, that you ask for it, because generally there are people here who will be able to help you with any issues that you come across during your time studying with us. And there are scholarships and grants as well. And I think I'm not sure if there's a session today. Jacinta might be able to assist in that regard. But if you go to that link, so the federation.edu.au/scholarships, and have a look through there, you'll be able to see if there are any scholarships or grants which might apply to you in terms of assisting you. And we appreciate too that coming to university, particularly if you're you have to move to study, so maybe you're coming in from a regional area, that it can be quite an expensive exercise too. So it's worth checking out what scholarships and any funding that might be available to assist you in that regard. And there's all the contacts as well. So if you do need to contact, and we've sort of touched on this already, and if you have got any questions, what's really important is that you ring us up or send us an email. And I know I can speak for all of the academics here. We're more than happy to get questions from students who are considering studying here. So get in touch with us, send us an email, ring us. We will get back in touch with you, and we will make sure that you get the best information, because for a lot of you now, what you're doing is obviously seeking out information and trying to find out what's going on. So your best way to make a decision is to have the most information you possibly can.